So, this is my review of the Punisher Max issues 1 through 5, or the Punisher Max Kingpin, which is what the name of the arc was. And I was hesitant to pick this book up because it's written by Jason Aaron, one of the co-conspirators of murdering Ghost Rider. Of course, I mean, he wrote the ending of the book and he raped him. He had just as much a part of raping the character. So I was just kind of on the fence, but I tell you what really won me over was the covers. I really like the covers. But so I read all of these, and I have this to say: this is not a Punisher book. Now, granted, it is good. It definitely belongs in the Max universe. This book had some very cringeworthy moments, but Punisher shows up like once or twice, and then he fights a guy they call the Mennonite, and the whole thing seems like a tack on. This is a Kingpin book. I think this should have been a Kingpin miniseries featuring the Punisher that leads up into starting the new Punisher series, because this is, of course, the relaunch of Max. Like I said, this book has some very cringeworthy moments. Like, there's a part where the whole point is the Kingpin is he's this low level, guy working for a guy called Don Rigoletto. I can't exactly recall it's something like that, Rigoletto, somewhere in the ballpark on that one. But they're all trying to basically, pull all this money and make it look like there's this one big kingpin of crime. Of course, they don't intend to actually establish one. It's all kind of a trick. But everyone's fun to get, and the Punisher hears about it, and he starts investigating. Well, who's the kingpin? Who's all this? But secretly, Fisk is working his own angle where he actually is going to step in and become the kingpin. And of course, once they realize the Punisher's out there, they hire the Mennonite, who's just this ex-mafia hitman. And I gotta say, the stuff with him, like, some of it's badass, some of it's really corny. Like, there's a fight on the street where he basically refuses to use anything but his hands and like simple tools, like a sledgehammer. And like the fights are really good, but there's one part where like he calls his horses, and the horses run over the Punisher, and he's like following the Punisher in a horse-drawn carriage, and things that require a little too much believability, in my opinion. The thing about Max books that I like is usually that they're so realistic. But overall, this book was not a terrible book. It's one of those $4 a piece Marvel books, so I'm still not crazy about books that charge me an extra buck. But there's one moment in this book where the Kingpin's talking about he was in prison, and he was raped in prison by this one guy. So he gets out, he finds the guy's wife, he pays a bunch of like sleazy, like disease-addled crackheads to come and rape his wife while he basically takes pictures. Then he sends the pictures to him while he's in jail, and then he waits for the guy to break out of jail and come there, and then he tortures him until he dies. Which he said to it he said he started torturing when he got home, and like it took him all night to die. So I mean, it's a very brutal book. It's not a Punisher book. I can't reiterate that enough. Don't go into this for the Punisher. I would say yes, it's definitely a pickup, but go in for the Kingpin story. Of course, the next arc in the series is gonna be Bullseye, starting with issue 6. I can't wait to see how they play that out. I really want to see, how much of because I'm not really understanding. Because with the previous Punisher Max, it was like the only hint we got at the other, overall Marvel universe was Nick Fury came in one of the runs. Here it seems like we're going for a much more, this is the normal Marvel universe, but, it's just a little more darker. So, I can't wait to see what they do with Bullseye. I definitely recommend picking this up. Probably wait for it in trade, though, because the single issues might be a little hard to find. So, yeah, love it. Don't go in for the Punisher stuff, go in for the Kingpin stuff, and obviously it's a Max book. Don't let kids read this and have a strong stomach, because while the violence isn't really that intense, the artwork's okay, but it's not very realistic, so you can kind of handle the violence. And some of the violence is all just out playing out corner. There's one part in the beginning where the Kingpin grabs a guy's head and just kind of like pushes it together and his eyes pop out. And that's just kind of a B-list horror movie joke to me. Like, I didn't take that seriously, but then you get to the end where they like slash a kid's throat with a razor. So, some of it's corny, but some of it's very violent, so have a strong stomach. And this is J Train, and I'll see you soon, YouTube.